Λοιπόν, εκτάκτως μέχρι και σήμερα θα έχει υποσχεθεί ο Σάμελ Σούχρι να ολοκληρωθεί σήμερα η διάσκεψη του Οργανισμού Ηνωμένων Εθνών για το κλίμα. Έχουμε μιλήσει αποκλειστικά με τον ανώτερο συντονιστή του Οργανισμού Ηνωμένων Εθνών για την κλιματική αλλαγή που βρίσκεται στο Σάρμ ελ Σέιχ της Αιγύπτου και έχει πολύ μεγάλη αξία να μας πει τι συμβαίνει με τις διαπραγματεύσεις και ποιες θα είναι οι αποφάσεις, γιατί έχουμε το πρώτο non-paper απόφασης για το κλίμα. Μπορούμε να το δούμε. Government ministers and negotiators from nearly 200 countries began earlier in this week the slog of finding common ground for a deal at the annual UN Climate Summit, and Egypt's COP27 presidency released a two-page sketch of what could become a deal, a non-paper as they called it. Can you give us an idea of this draft? You are joining us from Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt.
The paper is still being negotiated, so while I've seen the draft, this is still early days. That document may be very different from the draft that was circulated. But we can see some progress on technology, on transparency, even on loss and damage, which has been a difficult point of discussions here. So if those texts stay, they can still change, but if they stay, there is a small step forward.
A new report from the United Nations Development Programme warns that the impacts of the climate crisis will start to be deadlier than some widespread diseases like cancer as the planet continues to heat up. Do we have time to save our future from climate catastrophe? And can we be optimistic about the outcomes of COP27 in terms of implementation and action?
Time is not, I'm afraid, on our side. I think that there's been some progress. So if we look at 2015, we were heading for a world that would heat up by 4.5 degrees. And if all of the plans that countries have put forward would be implemented, we could hit a 1.8 degree target. I'm trying to keep my glass half full, even though we can see increases in climate extremes and disasters. But there is also progress. There is progress, especially on energy, where now renewables are the cheapest form of electricity production.
According to the UN, global population has reached the milestone of 8 billion. Most of the 2.4 billion people to be added before the global population peaks will be born in sub-Saharan Africa. Most of these countries are suffering from severe droughts due to climate crisis. So what are the dangers that these populations will be facing, and how can the global community protect them?
Early warning systems is a really good way of saving lives, helping people with that just 24 hours of information before something bad may come, a storm, for example. Ecosystem-based adaptation, helping with keeping urban areas cool so that the heat, the extreme heat, is not killing people, frankly.
Having more people on Earth puts more pressure on nature as people compete with wildlife for water, food, and space. Can our planet cope with that?
The wealthiest 1% have much higher emissions than the poorest part of the population. To that extent that the wealthiest 1% has double the emissions of the poorest 50%. There are plenty of opportunities for increasing the resilience against climate change and then also meeting the needs of a growing population.